it's a miracle. From 8 o'clock tonight, even if we walk with that staff, I feel good. We got to get Ricky Lake off the air, y'all. We have got to get Ricky Lake off the air.
He was the comedy legend of the 1990s, the man who brought laughter into every American home. Sinbad. No cursing, no gimmicks, just a kind smile and a clever joke. And he had millions of Americans laughing until their sides hurt. Sinbad was warmth and heart in a Hollywood that could often feel cold and chaotic. But in 2020, he suddenly disappeared. No scandal, no farewell. The world went silent thinking Sinbad had closed the final chapter of his story. But they were wrong. Recently, he reappeared in a wheelchair, weaker, yes, but with eyes still full of light. A short video, barely 5 minutes long, brought millions to tears. It wasn't just the return of an entertainer. It was the story of a man fighting to rise again from the shadows, carrying the same laughter he once gave to the world, this time to save himself. Before the spotlight ever called him Sinbad, the world only knew a boy named David Adkins, born November 10, 1956 in Benton Harbor, Michigan, a small lakeside town where winters turned everything white and dreams often froze before they had a chance to grow. He was the son of Reverend Donald Beckley Adkins and Louise Adkins, a proud, hardworking black family in the Midwest. His father, a strict but deeply faithful man, preached at the local Baptist church. Benton Harbor in the 1960s wasn't an easy place for a black kid. Racism still lingered, and poverty made people lose hope. But David was different. He always found a way to turn everything into fun. He loved sports, especially basketball, a game he would later call my first teacher of discipline. At Benton Harbor High School, he was team captain, tall, fast, and full of natural confidence. Every summer when the church held its community fair, David was the host, cracking jokes and making the whole neighborhood laugh. That was his very first stage, a small church, a choir, and the sound of laughter filling the room. In 1974, David graduated high school and earned a sports scholarship to the University of Denver. On the college court, he stood out not just for his skills, but because he could make everyone laugh even when the team was losing. But a knee injury ended his athletic dreams early. After graduating, David joined the U.S. Air Force, serving as a boom operator, the one who refuels fighter jets mid-air. In the barracks, the young airman quickly became a local celebrity. His sense of humor lit up every room. He'd mimic officers tell stories, perform for hundreds of fellow soldiers. One night, his friends asked him jokingly, "Who do you think you're most like?" David laughed and said, "Sinbad, the legendary sailor who always survives every adventure." That was the moment it stuck. The name Sinbad was born, and it never left him. From there, Sinbad set out to chase his dream. All he had was an old suitcase, a few shirts, and an unshakable belief in himself. The journey to becoming America's king of clean comedy. In the early 1980s, after leaving the Air Force, Sinbad hit the road. He performed anywhere he could in shabby bars, run-down clubs, sometimes with only 2 people in the audience. He got kicked off stages more than once for not being dirty enough. But Sinbad refused to change. He believed clean laughter could travel farther than any scandal, that truth and kindness had their own power. And then luck called his name. In 1983, Sinbad decided to compete on Star Search, the biggest comedy stage in America at the time. When he stepped on that stage, the crowd went wild. He won 7 weeks in a row, becoming a national sensation. Host Ed McMahon introduced him as a man who makes you laugh without a single curse word. Within months, America knew the name Sinbad, the clean comedian in an era full of shock humor. The success of Star Search brought him to Los Angeles. He started appearing on small TV shows and soon caught the attention of NBC producers. In 1987, he landed the role of Coach Walter Oakes on the hit sitcom A Different World, a spin-off of The Cosby Show. The role was meant to be small, but audiences loved him so much that the network kept him for 4 seasons. Sinbad didn't just bring laughs. He brought warmth, sincerity, and optimism. By the late 1980s, he had become one of America's most beloved black TV stars. Then came The Sinbad Show. 1993, 1994, his dream project. In 1993, Fox gave him his own sitcom, The Sinbad Show. It told the story of a single man who adopts 2 orphaned children, a heartfelt story that mirrored who Sinbad really was off-screen. Though it only lasted 1 season, critics praised it for its positive message about love and family in the black community. Sinbad never chased scandals or shock value. "I wanted people to see that black men can be gentle too," he said in a 1994 interview. When the show was canceled, he didn't get bitter. "It's okay," Sinbad smiled, "as long as I get to tell the stories I believe in." Hollywood calls. His name, the golden era of Sinbad. By the mid-1990s, Sinbad finally stepped into the brightest spotlight of his life. After years of being a familiar face on television, Hollywood invited him into major film projects. In 1995, Sinbad starred alongside Phil Hartman in Houseguest. It was a gentle, wholesome family comedy, no gimmicks, no profanity, but it exploded at the box office. With a production budget of just around $10 million, the film grossed $26 million in the US, a major hit for a family comedy at the time. Sinbad earned about $1 million for the role, a record salary for a black actor in a family film back then. From that moment, Hollywood learned that clean comedy could be profitable. Right after Houseguest, Disney came knocking. They wanted Sinbad to star in First Kid, playing a Secret Service agent assigned to protect the rebellious son of the US president. The movie was released in August 1996 and earned over $26 million domestically. Disney paid Sinbad $1.5 million and added a first option clause for 2 future projects. People who worked with him recalled Sinbad was the only guy who could make kids laugh and make adults cry. That same year, Ebony magazine listed him among the top 10 most powerful black figures in Hollywood. But Jingle All the Way 1996 was Sinbad's true peak, the role that turned him into a legend. He played Myron Larrabee, the rival mailman going head-to-head with Arnold Schwarzenegger in the now-classic Christmas movie Jingle All the Way. Produced by 20th Century Fox with a $75 million budget, the film grossed more than $129 million worldwide. Sinbad's salary skyrocketed to $2.5 million. He became one of the highest-paid black comedians in Hollywood, standing alongside Eddie Murphy, Martin Lawrence, and Whoopi Goldberg. Studios began calling him the king of clean comedy. Both kids and adults adored him. Parents trusted their children with his movies, and the media praised him as the safest laughter in America. At his peak, Sinbad earned between $4 and $5 million a year from film's TV shows and endorsement deals. Outside of film, he ruled the stage. His comedy tours during this period sold out nationwide, with ticket prices averaging $75, $100. In 1997 alone, his Sinbad Nothin'. But the Funk Tour grossed over $5 million according to Variety. HBO paid millions to air 2 specials, Sinbad Afros and Bell Bottoms 1993 and Son of a Preacher Man 1996, both ranking among the most watched comedy programs of their years. At the height of his fame around 1998, Celebrity Net Worth estimated Sinbad's fortune between $15 and $18 million, including cash, real estate, business equity, and touring revenue. He held endorsement deals with Nike and Coca-Cola and appeared regularly at events for Disney Channel and Nickelodeon. At that time, Sinbad lived like the model of American success. He bought a 7,000-square-foot mansion in Hidden Hills, California, worth about $2.1 million in 1990s dollars, complete with a swimming pool, mini studio, and private screening room. In the garage sat his collection of classic cars, a Cadillac Fleetwood, a Mercedes SL, and a custom Harley-Davidson. He also founded his own company, Sinbad Enterprises, dedicated to producing comedy tours and cable specials. He hired his own crew, managed his own shows, and even invested in young, up-and-coming artists. In a 1997 interview with Jet magazine, Sinbad said, "I don't just want to perform. I want to create opportunities for the black faces Hollywood keeps overlooking." At that point, Sinbad was the perfect image of the true American man, funny, kind, and successful. He was a hero to audiences of every generation, especially within black families who saw in him a warm and wholesome figure in a Hollywood often ruled by scandal. Sinbad had made all of America laugh, but what the world didn't know was that behind the laughter stood a man quietly fighting against rising tides, mounting debt, Hollywood's silence, and a loneliness that spoke no words. The darkness. Behind the laughter. The hardest chapter of Sinbad's life. By the late 1990s, Sinbad was still one of America's most beloved black comedians. But just as his career soared, he began to lose the one thing that mattered most: control. Sinbad wasn't the kind of man who lived lavishly. He didn't blow money, didn't use drugs, didn't chase scandals or gold-plated mansions. He simply trusted people and believed he could handle everything on his own. In the early 1990s, as he began earning millions each year, Sinbad founded Sinbad Enterprises based in Los Angeles. The goal was to handle his own tour's ticket sales recordings and creative rights. He handed the accounting and bookkeeping to a small group of close friends from Michigan, including his brother Mark Adkins, who had toured with him for years. They weren't professional accountants, just loyal, well-meaning people who loved Sinbad and wanted to help. He let them manage the book-signed contracts without double-checking tax details, and invested in small production companies without reviewing the numbers. Over time, while audiences still saw him as the king of clean comedy, the bills and penalties from the IRS quietly piled up. Sinbad hadn't paid his full taxes from 1998 to 2006. Sinbad Enterprises, the stage equipment company he hoped would lower touring costs, turned into a financial black hole. The equipment wore out fast, rental deals collapsed, and maintenance expenses swallowed any profits. Sinbad thought everything was fine because his brother and team kept saying, "We're still in the green." He believed them. He never checked. He never doubted. "I hate numbers," he once said. "I just want to make people laugh." Meanwhile, the 2000s brought a new wave of comedy. Rawer, edgier, more street-flavored. Names like Chris Rock, Dave Chappelle, Bernie Mac, and Martin Lawrence began to dominate TV and the box office. Sinbad's family-friendly humor, gentle, optimistic, controversy-free, suddenly seemed too soft for a generation obsessed with rebellion. By the early 2000s, the big contracts had disappeared. Laughter couldn't pay the bills. In 2009, the IRS formally came knocking. According to court filings, Sinbad owed more than $8 million in unpaid income taxes dating back to 1998. When the first notice arrived, he thought it was a typo. When the second came, he began to worry. And when tax agents showed up at his home, he realized he'd lost control. His bank accounts were frozen, assets seized, and penalties doubled with every passing year. In less than a decade, a man who had once earned over $30 million from movies and tours had become a debtor, owing 8 figures. "Nobody stole my money," Sinbad admitted. "I did this to myself." For months, he performed anywhere he could: colleges, churches, small auditoriums to pay off the debt. But a $10,000 gig couldn't touch millions in back taxes. "I didn't blow money on bad stuff. I just trusted the wrong people," he told CNN Money in 2013. "I thought laughter could pay the bills. I was wrong." In April 2013, Sinbad filed for Chapter 13 bankruptcy. His total assets were just $131,000, while his debts exceeded $10.9 million, including $6.8 million in unpaid federal taxes, with the rest in personal and business costs. He was forced to sell his Hidden Hills home, once a symbol of his success. The clean comedy empire had collapsed. Newspapers didn't call him the comedy legend anymore. They printed cold headlines. Sinbad files for bankruptcy, owes over $10 million. Hollywood went silent. The same people who once clapped him on the back were nowhere to be found. A world that once laughed with him no longer listened. In the years that followed, Sinbad kept performing not in 10,000-seat arenas, but in college halls, community churches, and veteran centers, the few places that still believed in honest laughter. His paychecks were only a few $1,000s per show, but Sinbad never lost his smile. "As long as I can stand, I'll keep telling stories," he told USA Today in 2015. Yet in the middle of that silence, another storm was brewing. One that didn't come from Hollywood this time, but from the internet. The Mandela effect, the internet shockwave. Around 2016, a strange phenomenon swept across the internet. Millions of people on Reddit, Twitter, and YouTube all swore they had once seen a movie where Sinbad played a genie, a children's comedy called Shazam. Some even remembered vivid details: the color of his costume, the turban he wore, the exact scene where he stepped out of a magic lamp to help 2 kids. The problem was that movie never existed. There was no copyright record, no trailer, no IMDb listing, no cast or crew who had ever worked on such a project. And so, the internet called it the Mandela effect, a term describing collective false memory named after Nelson Mandela, because so many people once remembered him dying in prison, though he actually lived until 2013. The name Sinbad suddenly became the center of a global psychological mystery. Millions debated online, creating entire subreddits to prove the movie was real. Some swore they had watched it on VHS as kids. Others even drew fan posters or used AI to recreate scenes, desperate to confirm that their memory was true. Meanwhile, the real Sinbad, living quietly after years of financial struggle, discovered that he had somehow become an internet legend for a movie that never existed. In a 2017 talk show, he half joked, half smiled. "I don't remember ever making that movie, but who knows? Maybe I really am a genie. I just got erased from everyone's memory." The audience laughed, but beneath the humor was something bittersweet. He had once been a real comedian, made real films, brought real laughter to millions. Yet now his fame was being revived by a collective illusion. It was the internet's ironic tribute to a forgotten legend. And Sinbad, true to himself, turned the joke into a smile. Instead of getting angry, he decided to join the fun. In April 2017, he teamed up with the comedy group College Humor to make a parody short Shazam, exactly the way people online had imagined it. Dressed in genie robes and a turban, Sinbad stepped out of an ancient lamp and spoke in a deep, mystical voice. The clip was barely 3 minutes long, but it sent the internet into a frenzy. Viewers were stunned and ecstatic. "It's real." They screamed, knowing it was a parody, yet loving every second. For Sinbad, it wasn't just a joke, it was a way to reclaim his own story. If the whole world remembers wrong, he said behind the scenes, "I'll let them remember it in the happiest way possible." That video marked the first time in years that Sinbad made the internet laugh on his own terms. After years of battling debt, Sinbad came to believe that as long as he could still make someone laugh, his life still had meaning. But in 2020, everything changed in an instant. He would face the most terrifying fight of his life: health crisis, the stroke that nearly took him. On October 25, 2020, according to his wife Meredith Fuller, Sinbad suddenly collapsed in the living room while talking on the phone. He was rushed to an emergency room in Los Angeles. Doctors diagnosed him with an ischemic stroke caused by a blood clot blocking blood flow to the brain. The first surgery to remove the clot was performed that same night, but only hours later his condition worsened. A second blood clot formed, triggering severe brain swelling. Surgeons were forced to perform a craniectomy, removing part of his skull to relieve pressure, a dangerous operation that could end his life at any moment. His family waited in silence outside the operating room for hours. They told us the chances of survival were very slim, his daughter Paige Adkins later recalled. The surgery succeeded, but Sinbad slipped into a deep coma. He remained in intensive care for months, tube-fed, unable to speak or move. Doctors warned the family that if he survived, his chances of walking again were less than 10%. The man who once made the world laugh now lay motionless, surrounded by wires and the sound of a ventilator. His family kept everything private. No public statements, no press releases, only silence and prayer. Throughout 2021, friends from the entertainment world, Kenan Thompson, Martin Lawrence, Whoopi, Goldberg, Arsenio Hall, and former A Different World castmates quietly sent financial help letters and prayers. No one knew if he could hear them, but they all believed Sinbad wouldn't give up. The journey forward, coming back from the edge. In November 2022, after 2 years of silence, Sinbad's family finally broke the news. They launched a website called The Journey Forward, sharing updates and raising funds for his recovery. On the site were photos that stunned the internet: Sinbad sitting in a wheelchair, frail, thinner, but with eyes still full of life. In one picture, he's seen in physical therapy, slowly lifting a trembling finger toward the air, his face determined. The caption was just 4 words: "I am not done yet." Not. Those images spread across social media within hours. Hundreds of thousands of comments poured in prayers, encouragement, and gratitude. Fans who had grown up watching Sinbad in the 90s now stood by him again, not with laughter, but with tears. The family revealed that his medical bills had surpassed $2 million. His rehabilitation was long and grueling. He had to relearn how to move his legs, lift his fingers, even form words again. But through faith, persistence, and humor, Sinbad defied every medical expectation. Doctors began calling him a living miracle. He wants to live, his daughter Paige wrote on The Journey Forward, not just to breathe, but to make people laugh again. The world prays for Sinbad. Once the story went public, artists and fans everywhere showed their love. In 2024, the Netflix Is a Joke Fest hosted a special tribute event titled A Tribute to Sinbad, featuring comedy legends like Kenan Thompson, Craig Robinson, Tiffany Haddish, and J.B. Smoove all gathering to honor him. Every dollar raised went directly to Sinbad's recovery fund. In a video played at the event, Kenan Thompson said, "Emotionally, Sinbad paved the way for us. He proved that you can make the whole world laugh without hurting anyone." From quiet physical therapy sessions, Sinbad began taking his first small steps. He could stand for seconds, then minutes. He relearned how to smile, how to speak, how to look into a camera again. Doctors called it a medical miracle. Only 1 in 10 people survive that kind of stroke. And Sinbad didn't just survive. He woke up fully aware, fully present. The comeback that made the world catch its breath. In February 2024, America witnessed a moment that brought millions to tears. After more than 3 years fighting through a stroke, Sinbad, the legendary comedian from a different world, reappeared. Not in a theater, not under bright stage lights, but on a giant screen inside the Martin Luther King Jr. International Chapel at Morehouse College in Atlanta, Georgia. The appearance was part of the A Different World HBCU College Tour, a special series raising scholarship funds for historically Black colleges and universities' HBCUs and inspiring a new generation of students. In the middle of thunderous applause, Sinbad's face suddenly appeared on the massive LED screen. He smiled, his voice slow but full of life. "Thank you to everybody who's been praying for me and saying good things and supporting me during this time in my life. It means a lot to me." The entire hall, hundreds of students and alumni rose to their feet. Some began to cry. They weren't just seeing a comedian, they were seeing a symbol of courage. Sinbad laughed, his voice slightly unsteady, but his eyes still warm. "It's wild that the kids even know who I am." "That's beautiful." The audience erupted. He paused for a beat, then added, "Expect to see more of me soon. And don't freak out if you turn around, I'm standing right behind you." A few days after that event, Sinbad posted a second video on his official Instagram. This time he recorded at home, no lights, no audience, just an old guitar behind him and a few family photos on the wall. His voice was slow, a little shaky, but warm and sincere. "Those words are important, and I feel them. I feel those prayers." He said he was still learning to walk, learning to move his hands and feet, the parts of his body doctors once said were dead. But now they were coming back to life. Limbs that were said to be dead are coming alive, and he's taking the steps necessary to learn to walk again. Sinbad ended the video with a tired but bright smile and just 2 words: "Miracles happen." No stage, no loud laughter, no polished script. Just a man learning how to live again, thanking the world for remembering him. In those few short minutes, Sinbad didn't need to perform. And he didn't try to make anyone laugh. He simply showed up and the world wept. Because sometimes miracles don't come from dazzling lights. They come from people who still dare to smile in the dark. In a Hollywood built on glamour, and the temporary Sinbad has always been different. No scandals, no wild parties, no tabloid romances. What he has believed in from beginning to end is love, family, and loyalty. Love, marriage, and the people who kept him here. In 1985, just as his comedy career began to rise, Sinbad married Meredith Fuller, his college friend, the one who understood the real him better than anyone. She wasn't just a wife, she was a friend, an advisor, and sometimes the only person willing to check him when the spotlight started to blind him. They had 2 children. Paige Adkins, born 1986, a singer and music producer who inherited her father's artistic gifts. Royce Beckley Adkins, born 1992, a director and screenwriter who later became Sinbad's right hand, documenting his recovery in the journey forward. But just as fame peaked, the marriage began to crack. Endless tour dates and non-stop tapings meant Sinbad was almost never home. He later admitted, "I was so busy trying to make people laugh that I forgot how to listen." In 1992, they divorced quietly. No lawsuits, no scandals. Just 2 people who had loved deeply exhausted, letting go for a while in the whirlwind of fame. Sinbad told Oprah, "We were too young, too busy, and we didn't know how to slow down. But fate didn't let them go so easily. After nearly a decade apart, Sinbad and Meredith remarried in 2002, not out of habit, but because they realized that amid the losses, the lights, and the noise, they still needed each other. Meredith said, on Oprah, "Where are they now? He's stubborn, he's loud, but he's my best friend. And no matter what, he still makes me laugh." When the stroke hit in 2020, it was Meredith who noticed first, called for help, and stayed with him for months in the hospital. She and their children took shifts by his side day and night. In the first update on the journey forward, the family wrote his wife Meredith never left his side. Every day she told him, "You are still here, you are still loved." As for Sinbad and his thank you video to fans at the start of 2024, he glanced at the family photos behind him, smiled and said, "They saved me. I lost my body, but they never let me lose my soul." They were no longer the picture-perfect couple of the 80s. They were two real people who had lost each other in the blinding light of fame and found each other again in the darkest months. Today, Sinbad is still moving through a slow recovery, but beside him is Meredith, the one holding his hand every morning in physical therapy, and Paige writing music inspired by her father's strength, and Royce behind the camera capturing every first step after the stroke. Current net worth: a moment of recovery after the abyss. In 2025, after nearly a decade of decline and 5 years battling illness, Sinbad officially returned with a number that surprised many, an estimated net worth of about $4 million. For an artist who once owed more than $10 million and survived a devastating stroke in 2020, that figure isn't just financial, it's a symbol of survival. Looking back at the journey, it's $4 million made of grit, sleepless nights, and the belief that laughter can pull a person back from the edge. After nearly half a decade out of sight, when it seemed he might never return to the stage, Sinbad left the world stunned. Straw, the rebirth of a legend. In June 2025, Netflix made a surprise announcement Sinbad would appear in Straw, the latest film from director Tyler Perry. It wasn't just another movie, it was a historic moment, Sinbad's first role since his life-threatening stroke in 2020. In Straw, Sinbad plays Benny, an older kind-hearted neighbor, who quietly helps a single mother played by Taraji P. Henson, struggling to care for her young daughter with a serious illness. It's not a lead role, and not heavy on dialogue, but every look, every smile from him brings audiences to tears. This isn't just acting, it's a piece of Sinbad's real soul. A man who had to relearn how to walk, speak, and breathe, now showing that very journey on screen. Director Tyler Perry said at the Los Angeles premiere, "Sinbad didn't just act, he delivered. It was more than a performance. It was a miracle." When Straw premiered on June 6, 2025 on Netflix, Hollywood fell silent. No one expected that the man who'd been bedridden 5 years earlier would now be sitting for interviews, smiling and cracking jokes with reporters. After Straw, Sinbad returned to social media with a simple Instagram caption, "Still here, still working, still grateful." According to People magazine, he continues daily therapy and is in talks with Netflix about a comedy documentary telling the story of his journey from the stroke to Straw. The Griot reported that if his health remains stable, Sinbad could make a guest appearance in a comedy series in 2026, marking a full-circle return to his audience. Legacy: Sinbad's laughter and unbreakable will. There are people who make the world laugh, and there are people who make the world believe in laughter. Sinbad belongs to the second kind. Since the 1990s, he achieved something rare, making America laugh without cursing, without tearing anyone down, without glorifying pain. Then fate tested him to the limit. Fame faded. Money vanished. His body betrayed him. But Sinbad didn't disappear. He refused to let pain define the rest of his life. Step by step, he stood up, not to return to Hollywood, but to return to himself. Today, Sinbad is no longer the blazing star of Hollywood. He doesn't need to be. He lives with his family in California, learning to walk, to speak, to smile, little by little, day by day. Every step is a victory. Every smile is a miracle. That is Sinbad's true legacy, not in numbers, shows, or trophies, but in the hearts of people who once laughed with him and who now cry because he's still smiling.